Welcome to Teddy Talks, the podcast where we have open, revealing conversations about being female, being healthy, wealthy, and wise throughout generations. I'm your host, Teddy Jan Koval.
And I'm your co-host, Nikki LaRochelle.
In each episode, you will get to hear real stories that shaped us. We will be vulnerable and honest. It's girl talk, talking about things that few women talk about but want to know. You will learn, laugh, cry, and maybe even get angry. But Nikki and I have your back. We support you.
Yes, we do.
This is a place for support and enlightenment, and our mission is that you will find your own positive voice throughout our stories. Sit back, relax, join us on this incredible journey of growth, resilience, and empowerment. Season 3, first one, and I am so honored to have as my guest today, and this is what we have to look at, kind of, I think.
Okay.
We're at Eastern Maine Development Corporation, and I have the CEO and co-founder, Jen Millard of MAINE Love Water over here.
Hello,
I guess
everyone.
you have to speak.
Hello,
So that
everyone.
hello.
Lovely to be here, Teddy.
Yes, thank you, Jen. So where to start? I mean, I guess what I wanted to say is thank you for making the journey all the way, well, we'll just say Sebago Lake to Bangor, Maine.
Of course.
And this is how I found out about Jen and all the great things that she is doing for the state of Maine, and using a natural resource that is abundant, plentiful, and healthy. Hello, right? So I do want to say that a couple of things when I saw your article in Maine Biz, I said, 1990 graduate of Colby.
Yes.
I'm from Waterville.
Amazing.
I went to Waterville High School. My dad was on the faculty at Colby. My husband graduated in 1974. He was a lot of things, but he played football and
Great connections
great
from Colby.
connection.
Absolutely.
My dad and,
Well,
as we
Colby
grew
is
up
one
there.
of my motivations to come home to Maine, actually.
So, Jen, you went to Colby, but you grew up in Maine.
I did. I grew up in Windham, 12 generations Maine. My aunt and I are currently having some genealogical debate over whether it's 13 or not, but we're going to go with 12 till we get the facts. But born and raised in Windham, Maine. Was sort of happenstance, honestly, that I ended up at Colby. I was the first gen in my family to go to college.
Oh, wow.
And, in the end, it was a better economic decision to go to Colby than it was to UMaine at the time. And honestly, the decision was as easy as that because I didn't have very many choices. But I'm so grateful to have grown up at Colby. And I think that community has continued to serve me throughout my career, my life. And then, of course, I'm grateful to have a daughter who went there in 2020.
Oh,
so
nice.
Last May, I got a call from David Green asking to come back to Colby to serve on the Board of Trustees.
Lovely.
And if you're coming home to Maine, I think we should do something meaningful. So I decided, what am I going to do if I'm going to retire? I'm not going to retire.
No.
I want to do something for Maine. And so I started thinking about things to do here with the abundances that we have in Maine.
Well, so you were Colby, you left. What was your
Go West,
major?
young man.
Yeah.
I was an American Studies major, actually,
wow, cool.
with a minor in women's literature.
Oh, wow.
And so most of my career has been spent in, I would say I have 3 careers. My first career was in retail, all around consumer. My retail career will read like the tombstones of retail, but I grew up at Sears. I took Bed Bath & Beyond public. I did some private equity work for Brown Shoe. And then my last job was at Saks.
Wow.
And then my second career, I sort of indexed into technologies that were serving retailers. And most of them didn't understand who they were selling to or had
Wow.
very little consumer background. And so, what's the phrase? Go west, young man. So I spent 20 years in California building fintech companies primarily, all around consumer behavior.
Very interesting. I mean, that's what a Colby degree can get you.
But my engineer co-founders would always look at me and say, "American Studies, what do you think?
yeah.
Like, what's your opinion here?" And it would be kind of comical. But I do believe that a liberal arts mind makes some of the best product managers because of the way we view the world. And
Totally.
my give back to Colby in all these years has been really working with Todd Halloran at the Halloran Lab. For entrepreneurship. So that's my give back to my liberal arts alma mater. And we have 300 students in an innovation club of their own accord.
That is great.
No degrees, no credits, no any of those things. It's because they have big ideas and they want to do big things.
Oh man, that is wonderful, wonderful. And so now you came back because you were retired. Is that
my husband and I have spent our careers in technology? So San Francisco, Austin. We've spent summers in Maine for like the last 10 years or so as technology careers enable or where we were capable, with the intention that we would come home to Maine.
That's great.
And so it was really David's call that was sort of the trigger of maybe it's time. Maybe it's time to come home. All my kids are graduated from college.
Yeah.
Maybe I could do something, really meaningful for myself, but also more importantly, meaningful for my state.
Well, I've left just briefly and always knew there's no place on earth that I would live other than Maine. And people, as we say, may bitch and moan about the winters, but I play ice hockey and ski. So it's like, it's perfect.
Well, we embrace this as a brand actually of sort of the essence of Maine. What we're really selling here is the aspirations of Maine. It happens to be water, but it's really the aspirations of Maine.
Well, whether it was
summer camp, ice hockey, a summer house, a weekend in Maine when I was in college in Boston. I've had people come up to me say, I went to school in Boston, but my favorite memories are the weekends I spent in Maine.
Yeah.
That's really the feeling, the essence of Maine.
Right.
And, Maine has an incredible halo of artisanal expertise. There's lots of brand studies that show Maine sells as a brand 30% more than a product without Maine written on it. That was put out by the University of Maine last year.
Wow.
And so we've really tried to take what I believe to be the hardworking, humble essence of Maine. When we relax, we don't just sit around. We're hiking, we're skiing, we're biking. So that concept of we're actively relaxing in Maine.
Oh, and that's where when you breathe and get away from it all, but you've got to be out in nature to find yourself.
And that's why we have a tree on our can, Teddy. It's really about the forest. We always want to talk about the water. And the water is incredibly epic in Maine. We have the purest body of water in the lower 48.
I brought the Gazetteer because people always, especially up here in Bangor, they talk about Moosehead Lake, which is really an hour away. And that's the biggest lake in Maine. But let's see. I think it's map right here. This is Sebago Lake, everybody.
And that provides drinking water for 2 out of 5 Mainers.
Yeah.
It's one of the largest mass bodies of public drinking water in the U.S. and has 100 gallons per person in the world today, Teddy, if it did not rain. So it's one of the deepest and widest lakes that's used for water for civilians, let's say. But really, the water would not be so pure if we did not have an incredible forest that we retain and protect around the lake.
The shoreline, the I was reading about Sebago Lake. It's not only is okay, 113 miles shoreline roughly, but it's the deepest lake in the state. It's 316 feet deep. The average is 107. Yes, it covers 50 square miles, and people, I mean, and it's pretty concentrated, right?
Yes.
It's like Moosehead is all over the place, you know.
Well, Moosehead gets fed by, hundreds of rivers.
Yeah.
Sebago primarily gets fed up by the Crooked River and down. And so
where the
that forest around the Crooked River, Bethel, the mountains, it takes like 10
Yes.
years for the water to kind of come all the way down to the lake. And that the real water treatment plant is the forest that you're walking on in those areas. So we believe our best give back, so to speak, is really around land trusts, right? We want private landowners to provide public access and protection of their land,
right.
To really reinforce the quality of the water. If the city of Portland, or the water district of Portland, I should say, had to build a water treatment plant, it would be triple-digit billions to build such a facility. If we just protect the forest, we might never have to build that facility.
Exactly. And I looked for trivia. Sebago Lake holds 995 billion gallons.
It's once you start learning about the lake and the power of the lake,
right,
and the power of the region around the lake, and credit to the Portland Water District. And I would call out Paul Hunt, who's been their environmental manager for, I think he's going on a 30-year career.
Oh wow.
Protecting this resource and advocating for the resource has been his life's work. And I think, you have people like Paul and the people on the Water District Board that, understand that there's such Maine lovers, because we actually drive revenue back to the Water District. So, our thesis is to ensure that all parts of the ecosystem here make revenue. So we send the can to the brewer. The brewer is using Portland Water District connections to Sebago Lake today, and more importantly, paying for that water as a commercial customer.
Correct.
And so that payment helps retain the infrastructure for the Portland Water District. It still needs pipes and connections and things to get water to your home,
right,
and the treatment of that water. And then they yield the can back to me, which I push through distributors to retail.
So I'm going to ask you to kind of break that down, because Sebago Lake is the water for Portland and the surrounding towns.
2 out of 5.
2 out of 5. And the beer companies that need water to make beer also use the water, and they pay Portland.
So it's the same as making beer. The brewers pay Portland for the water that they use to make beer. It takes a lot more water to make a beer than it does to put water in a can, because they ferment off a lot of the water. So in actual usage, we use less water than someone making beer, but we have so much water that that's not really a part of this discussion. It's more the economic value that we are not taking water from Sebago. We are leveraging brewers that are already connected to Sebago, paying a commercial rate, just like they would for beer, so that we can help support the Water District in maintaining their infrastructure.
Yeah, because it says that the inflow for the water for Sebago is estimated at 544 million gallons of water a day.
Yes.
The outflow is only 498 millions of gallons.
It's roughly 8 billion in and about 4 billion out.
There you go.
And so we're always in an overage. And then, you've seen the amount of rain we've gotten this spring.
I know, my husband's baseball team.
Yeah, no, Saturdays are eliminated in Maine right now. But, really focusing on this incredible natural resource that we've taken for granted as Mainers. When I first was sort of doing research and starting the company, people would say, Jen, if you just want water, go get water at the faucet. You're like, that's the point. That's it right there.
That's a point. We can drink the water.
We have water that is so good that we just drink it out of the faucet.
Mm-hmm.
And I've lived in 4 other states. No one drinks water out of those faucets. And in fact, they don't even serve it to their pets.
Oh, wow.
When you start talking to people about what kind of water, I did in Detroit.
Oh.
What kind of water do you serve your animals? If they're buying water for human consumption, they're most often also giving that water to their animal, because in today's world, our animals are our children, right? So if it's not good enough for humans, why would it be good enough for Daisy? Right. So this concept of providing an aluminum vessel was a very important asset. Brewers all make a 16-ounce can. So here we are drinking 16-ounce cans. It's a great value for water. And so we think this is diversification of revenue for brewers.
And that's what I would just get to that. Your idea, or you found out, however, that breweries stop in the middle of the winter.
They don't have enough beer to make. Right? It's all based on consumption. Okay. So we need to help them diversify their revenue so they could produce something else in addition to beer.
Right. So they
have
were
all the same equipment.
Winter.
Many of them are, or reduced, reduced employees. People get laid off in the fall, often rehired in the spring if you can find them. With the decline of alcohol consumption in general, there's more of a 57% of Gen Z, surveyed would say I'd like sparkling water.
Yeah.
And so really, if you listen to what the consumer is telling you and you sort of feel the moment that we're in, I think we're at an important moment in the US where we have sort of a bifurcation of audiences of what people are drinking. And younger people are very conscious about what they're choosing to wear, consume, ingest, right, and are very much more educated than we were at 18.
Oh, totally. I mean, listen, I just came back from Biddeford having to have a liver scan because my doctor was like, I don't know, there was something a little strange. Thankfully, everything is perfect.
Knock on wood, yeah.
And it was probably because, my dad was a coach, so I never drank beer in high school or college. I was like one of the rare few. And then I worked 30 years as an air traffic controller where you have random drug tests and alcohol tests. So I wasn't a big drinker ever, but everybody else was, right? So this is just really a godsend. And how you have figured out to can something that is abundant and precious to us, and we don't even, that's why I really sincerely thank you for growing up here and then leaving.
Sadly, and I wouldn't have been able to do this company if I hadn't done all my other companies, because it was really all the experiences that I had that let me walk into a factory and go, why is the equipment quiet in here? Yeah. Shouldn't I be hearing something? Shouldn't something be moving? Like, I'm thinking Laverne and Shirley almost. I'm going to date myself, right? But in actuality, many craft beer breweries, have very small canning lines. And so it's very easy for them to produce what they have or what they need to produce for beer. And then literally the line is sitting idle. So why don't we think about how we leverage this capacity and think of it as capacity? Right. This is also only working one shift, Teddy.
Oh, wow.
Right. So people always say, Jen, aren't you worried about running out of water? And I have to remind them that typically this is one shift in Maine. We're not running 2 shifts at brewery facilities. No. So if I had SeaWorld or Disney or some of the clients that we're talking to, because obviously the biggest impact to reduce single-use plastic is in venues where people are forced to buy a beverage in a plastic bottle almost because there's not a lot of choices.
And plastic cups.
All of it. And we really see our positioning ourselves as an alternative to single-use plastic. And so stadium owners are starting to pay attention that customers are frustrated around recycling. I'm frustrated. Nobody knows what bin to put their things in.
No.
Right? We want to do a great job. We're trying, but it's confusing.
Well, then they have to make another extra plastic bin to put the plastics in.
And so really what we're trying to help stadiums see through is almost that circularity of, if you buy a Maine Love and you see a Maine Love trash can, please put your Maine Love in the Maine Love trash can, and then the aluminum, well, it won't be perfect, but it'll be 90% maybe, right? And it makes it a lot easier for the consumer to feel like they've made a difference. They've completed their choice, right? Trash will still be taken away as trash, but aluminum is repurposed 70% in 45 days, statistically.
Wow.
So the cleaner you can separate the aluminum, the more of it can be repurposed.
And the aluminum, now, is this the same kind of aluminum that beer is put into?
All cans are the same.
But you were talking before we started recording, that the beer manufacturing plants aren't as there's not as many regulations as it would be for water.
Correct. Yeah. So beer is regulated by ATF, the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and some beer, regulators in Maine. Water is actually regulated by the FDA as food. So water is actually a food product. So really and interestingly enough, I am applying for a USDA Vager grant, which is, I have to get an opinion if I qualify, because water is food. And really that grant is designed to help farmers diversify crops.
Okay.
And my argument to the USDA is, why, if water is food, why would it be considered any different than a crop? And why would diversification at brewers be considered any different than diversification at a farm, when we're just enabling them to yield food?
Right.
And so there are some upgrades that a brewer would need to do to meet a GMP standard. Most of it is around sanitation, that candidly, might be nice to have anyway. Seal your floors, make sure your bathroom doors open the correct way, hand washing. You have to wear a hairnet when you make water.
Right.
Like it's food.
Right.
My warehouse is an FDA registered and regulated warehouse for water. So it is a little bit of a higher regulatory bar, but it should be, because it's food and it's water and all creatures need it.
Right. And I mean, which you bring up so many interesting things, because I was listening to another podcast, Mel Robbins. She had Eric Topol, who was a doctor, and Mel, and the doctor Eric Tobel wrote Super Agers, and that's where I started to hear about the microplastics, how dangerous it is,
and health span, and this concept of health span, not longevity.
And then it brought up the whole thing about FDA approved manufacturing facilities, because some supplements are not food. They're not FDA approved, but if they're the best supplements, they have to be manufactured in FDA approved
NSF labs. Yeah.
NSF labs.
And actually, I challenge one of the biggest hurdles, and I know this is an active project in Maine and in multiple ways, is we don't have enough labs in Maine, professional labs to test water. So I ended up having to create a testing process that includes shipping water to New Jersey overnight for it to be tested for coliforms. We have a beautiful Q2 lab associated with USM, which was really built for fermentation for our brew partners. But within the state, there's really only one FDA-rated facility, which is the Katahdin lab in Scarborough. And everyone uses it, Teddy.
Wow.
And so it just didn't seem appropriate to use. If everyone's using the same lab, we ought to make sure that's appropriate. So, and the lab would suddenly close. We're closed on Tuesday, Jen. Sorry. And so I'm like, well, this doesn't work for distributed manufacturing. And so I had to make it easy for the brewers. So they literally drop a can in a insulated container, a box. It is pre-labeled to go to a lab in New Jersey. And then I get the results back on the portal, and then we release the lot for sale. But we had to navigate that out of Maine. I'd love to bring that testing back to Maine.
Okay,
but,
every listeners,
but this isn't well known. Susan Collins, the University of Maine.
Mhm.
There's been a multiple attempts at bringing more labs
What
to
about
Maine.
Jackson Lab?
I mean,
the
that's
interesting
thing, it's not testing. It's not testing.
It's not.
Not for coliforms, for CPG, for consumers.
Okay.
So really what we're talking about, Teddy, is insurance.
All right. Insurance.
Right? So testing is really about liability. It's health and safety, but it's ultimately about liability.
Yeah.
So a lab has to be willing to certify
a product.
Yeah. And the flat water is really the only one that's sort of ornery, because that has the biggest risk for bacteria. We solve that by pasteurizing every can, because I'd like to sleep at night.
Yeah. Well.
So we pasteurize that at a brewer that has a pasteurizing tunnel.
Wow.
Carbonation, interestingly enough, kind of throws off pathogens. It's not as risky as the flat water.
Really interesting.
Coca-Cola has made it very easy for anyone to make carbonated beverages. They're less regulated than the flat water.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you something offline. I have a friend who is a retired Harvard professor, and wrote a book, Making the World Safe for Coca-Cola. And it's very interesting.
I would
their
like to read that. Yeah,
absolutely.
I would like to read that.
But pasteurization, we never think of that. So
there's only one brewery in Maine that has a pasteurizing tunnel, and that brewery makes the pasteurized water that you see there. Because most it's Geary's. This is from Geary's. They have a pasteurizing tunnel. They're also one of the only legitimate co-packs in Maine.
Okay.
And then other brewers can make any other products, but the flat water must be pasteurized.
Wow.
So I ensure that it's done there.
So I went and tried to get some Maine Love Water up here.
Yeah, so we are just getting up here. So the Belfast Co-op actually has been one of our biggest sellers. So you should definitely check out the Belfast Co-op.
Okay.
So nice that their staffers put up. We were the pick of the week last week.
Yay.
Which was awesome.
Oh, well, for Bangor area, I did find, of course, Damon's.
Of course, Damon's, yes.
Damon's is here, but they don't have it yet.
Should be close.
Right.
Should be close. I actually think it pushed last week because I just saw the report this morning and they're on there. So I think it pushed last week.
That is awesome. And tell us, you're going to be in Hannaford?
Yeah, so we're at about 250 retail locations. We will be at I think it's the top 30 to 50 ocean doors for Hannaford. So probably a little more southern Maine. But all the IGAs up here.
Oh, really?
And IGAs in northern Mass will go next.
So you're diversifying into Massachusetts, and
this is a regional expression down 95 where people have an affinity of Maine.
Well, of course, because it's paradise.
Of course.
So many people though don't want to tell anybody, but then that just hurts our economy.
Well, I think this is a way to bring Maine to them where they live. We have very few products that bring Maine to Florida.
Right.
Right. We have a lot of snowbirds, right, that go to Florida.
Absolutely.
Lots of Florida.
Right.
But the products that we've traditionally made in Maine are not utilized in event stadiums. They don't usually see, a venue of 20 to 30,000 people or 100,000 visitors a day see a product from Maine. So Florida is obviously a very big market, and, Shamu should not sell plastic.
No.
Right?
No.
SeaWorld should not have plastic.
No.
And so I think we're at a moment where those groups are recognizing it's really about elimination of single-use plastic, Teddy, and that we provide an alternative to that need. We don't talk about BPA, PFAS, microplastic. Tons of people having those conversations. They should continue. They know more of that than I do.
Right.
I am focused on a solution.
Right.
The research can continue, but we already know it's bad. So let's focus on solutions. So this is a solution.
And so you are at Fenway?
We are working down 95
Okay.
with event stadiums as our primary kind of first go-to-market. So you'll see it in Portland with the Hearts of Pine. We are the water of the Hearts of Pine.
Yes.
We'll also be the water sponsor for the new Back Cove Music Festival. That's the first weekend in August.
Awesome.
And then you'll start seeing us move to Boston. We'll go to the Head of the Charles, for example, in October.
Okay.
Because I expect colleges and all the stadiums,
all the kids
down in Boston, and then down 95 to Florida.
Okay. I am so thrilled. Is there ever going to be Maine Love Water in a bottle? Glass?
So, interestingly, I have a lot of experience in glass. I ran a glass container company about 10 years ago in like 2015 to 2017. It's called Life Factory. It still exists. It's a beautiful product. Glass containers wrapped in silicone, food storage, baby bottles, drinking bottles, glassware for your house. It's a beautiful product, beautiful line. It was probably 10 years too early, Teddy. Glass is very expensive.
Sure.
There's only 5 places in the world that make it, and you have to import it all. But the thing for me that made it the trigger, I love to drink out of glass. Don't get me wrong; it'd be my preference. If I could find a way to do a glass vessel, I would have. But the bigger issue is rural communities cannot recycle glass.
Oh no, right.
And honestly, I've not met a facility in Maine yet that can recycle glass. And so, what I think people don't recognize when they think they're choosing a healthy vessel for themselves, which is true.
Right.
But the recyclability of that object and the cost to recycle that object in energy alone to melt down the glass is exorbitant.
Right.
And most of it gets shipped to Boston or to other way stations. And so a glass choice, while it might feel like a premium choice, it might feel like a clean choice. If you follow how it gets repurposed, it is not.
I totally understand that. Look at all the gas, the energy that is wasted to get that.
Go to the way stations that we have in Maine. Go visit your local dump and see what they do with glass.
Oh, yeah.
And it's usually binned up in big dumpsters waiting to have enough to haul it somewhere else. And there isn't a facility in Maine that I'm aware of that can actually fill glass. So every brewer's line can fill a 16-ounce can. Glass takes a very special line. Maine beer, for example, has a glass line. They don't produce in aluminum. So the equipment is very specific to the vessel.
Okay, right.
So all of our brewers make a 16-ounce can. Hence,
there you go. But this is common. And we talked about this a little bit before, but people want to feel like they're part of the vibe. And I say the vibe of maybe drinking alcohol or not missing out on the fun.
Yeah.
In the evenings or at a party, but
we were at Wavy Days on Saturday, which is a Mass Landing beer tasting event.
Oh, cool.
I'm going to get it wrong, 50 breweries, or it's a massive event. They do it every year. It was almost sold out this year. Of course it rained because it was on Saturday, Teddy. But it's a sampling event where you can try lots of different beers. By about halfway through the day, if you look up, everyone's holding their taster cup, but everyone else is also holding a can of water. Because they're tasting beer all day long.
And they want to
and they need to
hydrate their mouth.
Yeah, they need to hydrate.
Yeah.
So by the middle of the afternoon, when I looked up, it was just a beautiful vision of people having a great time, live music, beer tasting, everyone's dancing, has water. It's amazing to watch.
Perfect. So we'll end with your best advice to anyone, young or old, I would qualify in the old part, who wants to start something innovative. What's your best advice?
So I always am a big believer in just starting. I think there's a lot of students and there's a lot of people who have an idea. It's been rolling around in their brain for some time, but they never start. And when I say start, put a stake in the ground, form a company, make an LLC. It costs very little money. Do your research and start talking to people about your idea and talk to 1,000 people.
That's what I was hoping you would say.
Talk to 1,000 people.
1,000 people. And
I'm making up 1,000. Talk to enough people where you start to get very distinct feelings, very distinct feedbacks, threads that you can then work on. Because your first idea is likely not where you end up.
That's interesting. And well, you learn.
So originally I was only starting with the flat and the plain bubbles.
Okay.
It very quickly became that
blueberry,
people really wanted flavored seltzer. Jen, when are you going to make a flavored seltzer? And so I changed my go-to-market to include flavored seltzers.
Oh, perfect. I mean, my backyard is filled with wild blackberries.
That is my favorite profile, the blackberry.
So
but
good.
Interestingly, they kind of split a third. People, which is wonderful as a CPG maker, because not one is a hero. They're all a hero.
Oh, that is good. So you have the perfectly still Maine water,
plain flat water, plain bubbles, just seltzer, blackberry grapefruit,
the blackberry grapefruit with bubbles,
a blueberry lemon, and a raspberry lime.
That's great. Can't wait to just keep buying cases of this.
Fantastic to hear, Teddy.
Thank you so much, Jen.
Thank you for having me.
And you're the best. And best of luck, because, well, you won't need luck because it's a
little more time, a little more money. You know how it goes. This is commercialization in Maine, which I also try to point out to entrepreneurs. We don't have a lot of businesses that kind of make it to a commercialization state. And so my other mission in Maine is to show people that private entities can raise money and can build beautiful companies here to keep our young people in Maine. And then give back to the community. And then give back. There you go. You're perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you, Teddy. Thanks for having me. Yeah, let's have a toast. Cheers. Yeah, to Maine love. Thank you.